Hi, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. We're gonna go ahead and get started. I know that we may have some people joining us, so we'll just keep an eye on that and let people kind of join on into the session. Thank you so much for coming today for a talk for the animals. This is actually going to be our quarterly engagement session for volunteers, and staff are also welcome to join on in as a part of this. So we're really excited to go ahead and get this started, even if we have to do it virtually. Thanks to everyone in the chat for saying hello and hi. If you are calling in from a phone, you may not be able to see us, but you can hear us. If you do need to raise your hand, if you have any questions, you can click *9. Feel free to also send us an email if you're having any problems at all. You can send an email to volunteer@hawaiianhumane.org, and you can also send one to my email, jbenson@hawaiianhumane.org, if you're having any problems during the session. I'm really excited to get started. This is something that not only volunteers can participate in, but also staff as well. So if you kind of scroll through and look at everyone who's on here right now, it's really exciting. We have a ton of staff, volunteers, everybody. We have some people who are on-site volunteers, off-site volunteers, all sorts of people. So really excited for you to join in on this. If I haven't met you yet, my name is Juliana. I'm the manager of volunteer services. You've probably either talked to me on the phone or emailed, maybe in person, but if not, it's nice to meet you all. I'm really excited to get to work with each and every one of you as we kind of work on the new programs and everything with Hawaiian Humane Society. And I also just wanted to give you a little background about me, and then we'll kind of get into the presentation and some Zoom details. I joined Hawaiian Humane back in February of this year, late February, right before everything started with COVID. So if you haven't seen me, that's probably why. And prior to working with Hawaiian Humane, I was working at Habitat for Humanity in community outreach and engagement. So working with volunteers as the manager of volunteer services is right up my alley. I've also been working with nonprofits and animal welfare organizations my whole life, and also volunteering for them. So just seemed like the perfect fit. So I'm really excited to get to know you guys. For the session today, we're about to get started, and I'll go ahead and introduce our host. But before I do, I wanted to give you some reminders. Throughout the session, Dr. Carter will be presenting. If you have any questions at all, feel free just to type them into the chat box. I'll go ahead and take a note of those questions as they come through. And then when we actually start up the session at the end for the Q&A, that's when we'll go through and read off those questions and have Dr. Carter read through those. You can also raise your hand if you have questions. So if you look over to the right side of your Zoom page, either on your computer or your phone, there's actually a little option for you to raise your hand and let us know that you have a question. You can also always feel free to chat in the chat box as well. So I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I want to introduce you guys to Dr. Casey Carter, our chief veterinarian here at Hawaiian Humane Society. He's actually been with us for over 2 years, just recently celebrated an anniversary with us. So if you haven't met him yet, now's your opportunity. So everyone wave, say hi, Dr. Carter. I'll go ahead and let him take over and share his screen and get started on the presentation. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions throughout.
All right. Hi, everybody. Good to, I know a lot of you guys. This is kind of weird because I'm looking at like 9 people at once, and then I flip through and I see 9 more people, and it's usually I just see you one-on-one if I have met you in person, but we'll go with it. This is what we're doing now. So I'm going to share with you this PowerPoint that I went through and made. So I think, you know, as a volunteer, a lot of times you'll just see sort of one area of the shelter, volunteer or staff member a lot of times really. Just sort of see the one area that you're specialized in and not really get to catch a glimpse of the whole picture. So that's sort of why I thought of this idea to bring this up for you guys. I've been, like Juliana said, I've been with Hawaiian Humane Society for a couple years now, over 2 years. Before Hawaiian Humane Society, I worked at Dumb Friends League in Denver. It's a large animal shelter for 5 years. Had volunteered for a couple years before that. So I've been in shelter medicine my whole career. It's what I love. So forgive me if I look down periodically because I'm looking at my notes. So yeah, bear with me. So here we'll get started. So this is not what we're going to go over. This is an animal, you might not be able to barely see it. It's kind of out of focus, but this is an animal routing diagram from Marin Humane Society from California. So this would be an animal's trek through the shelter. So it's very complex. It's lots of ins and outs, lots of people, lots of interactions to get them from admissions to adoptions. We had an interim COO here, months ago, probably 9 months ago. Dr. Julie Dinage sort of made one for our facility, made an animal routing diagram, still really complex. So I tried to simplify it even more. I also feel like these animal routing diagrams don't really speak to everything in the shelter. So what I'm talking about here is, this is the main animal routing diagram that I came up with. So this is sort of what it means for me, for an animal to travel through the shelter. This is the stuff that was included in those diagrams, but over here on the side, all of these departments aren't really given, they don't make mention of these other departments and other people that help these animals through their journey here. So that's why I included them, but I'll show you along the way what I'm talking about. So generally, when an animal comes in, it starts in the admissions department. So we take in about 20,000 animals a year, which is an enormous number of animals. On the island of Oahu, we're the only open admission shelter, so we take in more animals than anybody. If you average it out, 20,000 animals per year is about 60 to 70 animals per day. If you can imagine what 70 animals looks like, that's a lot of animals. So we take in a lot of animals. There's a few ways for them to come into us. If they're injured wildlife or if they're wildlife, they'll come into us. We'll take them to the appropriate venue if we need to call USDA for them to come pick them up and things like that, or wild bird rehab, we'll call them and they'll come get animals for us. Stray surrender, so that means that an animal was found as a stray and somebody surrenders it to us. So this is your general loose dog running around, somebody picks it up in their car and brings it to us and we try to find the owner. A way sort of out of admissions, which is sort of the opposite of what we're talking about, is RTO, or return to owner. So return to owner would be that stray dog that came in. We searched for them. Maybe that dog had a microchip and we look it up in the database, call the owner, and then they come and get it, and it's RTO, return to owner. Another way of coming in is euthanasia requests. So we offer euthanasia services to the public at lower rates than vet clinics. So a lot of people that don't have the money to take their animal to a vet clinic for euthanasia can come to us, and we offer those end-of-life services. DOA means dead on arrival. So these ones are sometimes hard, if an animal is hit by a car or something like that and somebody brings it in, we'll take that animal in, hold it if we need to, scan it for a microchip, that type of thing, and cremate it if we need to. The last main one, owner surrender. So this is where an owner can no longer care for their pet for any reason. There's all kinds of reasons. A lot of times people are moving, or they got the pet and their landlord won't let them have it, or somebody in the house is allergic, things like that. So this is kind of what I'll focus on here with this talk, even though, just to let you guys know, all these other things happen. So enter Frank. So Frank is a dog and the owner cannot keep him anymore. They need to owner surrender him. We'll find a little bit more out about why later, but so what the owner does, they go on our website, they take a look at our admissions page, and due to COVID, we're doing appointments and admissions by appointment only. So they will go online, schedule an appointment to bring Frank in so that they can surrender him because they can't care for him anymore. So we do curbside service. So we knew that Frank was coming with his owner. Jason, the owner, calls this phone number up on the sign here from their cell phone, lets us know that they're here. We'll come out. Jason will maintain 6 feet distance, wear a mask, and have as minimal contact with the person as possible, because we know that COVID, the main spread of COVID is from human to human. So Frank comes. There he is, getting dropped off for his owner surrender. So Jason takes him in. The owner fills out this dog background questionnaire. So we can go through it and take a look at what they wrote. We scratched out their name for confidentiality reasons. Frank, he's about 10 years old. He's a terrier, neutered male. They don't have his microchip number, but we'll scan him when he comes in and see if he has a microchip. They say they got him from a breeder. They've had him for a few years. They're surrendering him because he's too scruffy and cute and his tongue sticks out. His dog, he has lived with children before, 3 and 7 years old. He ignores kids. He's lived with a dog and a cat, so on and so forth. He's house trained. They say they don't have a vet and he doesn't have any medical conditions. On the back of this sheet, sort of asks a little bit more about behavior. It'll sort of give us an idea of what we're getting into with Frank when he comes in so that we can assess him more appropriately. So it says he's friendly, playful with other dogs. He runs away from other dogs and barks. He knows how to get down. He stops eating when you pull food away. So this is important for our behavior department to know, in case there are dogs that have resource guarding problems. So if there are certain dogs that are really protective over their food or their toys, this will give us an indication as to that so that we can give the next adopters really good information on what they should look out for. He's never been in a fight with another dog. He barks when he's around other dogs. It's not surprising because he's a little terrier. He's never bitten. They ask if there are any medical conditions. Is this the part? I don't know. They wrote in that he has no teeth. And anything else important, he likes to lick his paws. Okay. So Frank comes into our admissions department. Jason takes him in. He scans him for a microchip. He weighs him to get a weight on him. He puts a band on him with his identification on it. He'll create an animal ID number. So every animal that comes into the shelter has an individual animal ID number. This lets us distinguish between the animals and make sure that we don't get anybody mixed up. Same thing with any person that comes into the animal shelter, pretty much gets a person ID number. So then last thing Jason will do, he'll put Frank in a kennel, and Frank will wait for his next step. So we're back to our roadmap. This is sort of our roadmap. This is our starting point. So we just walked through admissions. Let's say Frank had come in through field services. Field services provides all kinds of services for us. They handle, our dispatch department handles incoming calls and triages all those calls to the officers and handles all kinds of customer service things. Our officers, due to COVID, are doing fewer things right now, but still doing stray dog pickups, 24-hour emergencies, animal cruelty cases, dangerous dog complaints, animal abandonment, and more. So let's say Frank was a stray dog and field services had picked him up. Maybe this is something it would look like. It would be our officer, Kevin, who's awesome, holding Frank and bringing him into the shelter. The next step in the list is a health check. So this is where veterinary services gets involved. So at a health check, the idea is to assess the animal medically and behaviorally on initial exam. Our VSA2s will assess the dog behaviorally. They will do a quick behavior eval, do a quick physical exam, give vaccines, give dewormers, give flea and tick medication, and decide where that animal needs to go next. So I was talking at the beginning about how this is was our roadmap, and this is the main track of things, but then all these ancillary people on the side sort of are involved throughout the whole process. So throughout this whole process, animal care is taking care of Frank. This is Sherry. Giving Frank food, water, cleaning, making sure that he's clean and safe, giving them TLC when they need it, and monitoring them for illnesses. If they notice illnesses that pop up, they'll let us know, and we'll take a look at them. Animal care is sort of the glue that holds everything together. They take care of the animals all throughout the day. They're always on the front lines. They notice when there's differences with them. So whenever they come to me, I always listen. Next step in the process, after Brenda does her health check, the dog can go either one of two ways, go to behavior or go to veterinary services. Or really, if there's nothing wrong with it, can go to adoptions, but I didn't include that in here. So let's say that Frank had some behavior problems and he needed to be assessed by our behavior department. Then our behavior department is going to do a series of behavioral tests on him. So Robert, our behavior manager, wasn't available. It was his day off. So I had to use my dog, Kevin, to be the behavior specialist here. So here's Kevin assessing Frank. So it can sort of go back and forth from behavior to veterinary services. That's why this is a two-way arrow. We'll kind of say, well, I can't tell if this animal's behavior is based on pain or if it's based on true behavior problems. So sometimes animals can kind of bounce back and forth between behavior and veterinary services, and we work with each other to see where the source of behaviors are coming from. For veterinary services, we do a lot of surgery. We do a lot of medical stuff. So quick, I'll just talk about some of the surgeries that we do. We do this, HQHVSN. So that stands for high quality, high volume spay neuter. So you can see Dr. Takushi here with all of these animals lined up, and she is just gonna spay and neuter them each within minutes. It's not unusual for us a day in the shelter to do over 40 spays and neuters a day. Lighter days, less, but pretty commonly 30 to 40 surgeries a day. That includes dentals as well. So this is a dog that I took all of his teeth out. This came in with severe dental disease. This picture is about a year and a half old, and I think I was a little bit thinner there. I think I may have gained a little bit of weight looking at that picture. Cherry eye repair, that's when, I don't know if you've ever seen it in a dog's eye when they kind of, pink thing pops up in the bottom of the eye. So that's called a prolapsed gland of the third eyelid. We can do a surgery where we make a little incision and tuck it back in. Entropion, this is where eyelids roll in on themselves. So usually it's from birth. Animals can be born with this. I think people can be born with this too, but Usually dogs, every once in a while, we'll see a cat with entropion, but we can do a surgery to release those eyelids and put them back to a normal place. It's a really rewarding surgery because they spend their whole life squinting, and then you fix it and they are like, whoa, it doesn't hurt all of a sudden. Enucleation is taking an eye out. I know that we have a cat at the Cat Cafe right now, Aurora, that we did a bilateral enucleation on. So we took out both of her eyes. She was blind when she came in and had chronic infections in where her eyes should be. They were really small, like they had ruptured at some point. So we went in and took out all of that tissue so that she doesn't have problems in the future, and she's doing really well at the Cat Cafe. I got a video from them yesterday, and she's starting to love life. Tail amputation for any reason, limb amputations, mass removals. So we will take masses off, send them in to the histopathologist, and see what kind of tumors they are, if they are tumors. That way we can talk to adopters about what to expect in the future and things like that. So Smudges Fund and Max's Fund. These funds are designated. Smudges is for cats, Max's is for dogs. They're funds that are specially allocated to animals that we can't perform surgeries here in the shelter. So if something is too complex for us to perform, we can send them out to a surgeon and they'll take care of it. I don't have a picture of Smudges and Max's Fund, so I just included my cat, Linda. Linda was born and raised in Hawaii, on Oahu. All right, so we're back to our roadmap. We've been through behavior. We've been through veterinary services. So along with animal care, volunteer services is sort of helping throughout this whole process. It's not like plug you into the equation somewhere. It's just like throughout the whole process. So here is a picture of Frank getting walked to go out and shishi by our volunteer Janice. You can see he's lifting his leg on that tree, going pee. So volunteers, all capacities here. We have dog walkers, laundry volunteers, all the cat house roles, clinic support, both in the spay-neuter clinic and in the shelter, all other sorts of volunteers as well. Last year, there were 27,000 total volunteer hours. That's huge. That, just looking at that number and seeing volunteers passing through, doing what volunteers do, we wouldn't be able to do what we do without our volunteers. So we really appreciate you. The only other thing I forgot to mention in veterinary services is our spay-neuter clinic. So I mentioned all the surgery that we do on the shelter side. We also have our spay-neuter clinic here in the administration building, where we do public spay-neuter 4 days a week right now. It will increase once we get more capacity and staffing and stuff like that. The other thing that we do in the shelter is a lot of medicine. So we do a lot of medicating. Every day our assistants are medicating dozens and dozens of animals every day, getting them back to health and then getting them ready for adoption. So if an animal passes the behavior and veterinary services portions, the next step would be to go to foster if needed. So let's say Frank needed to go to foster. This is what I would submit as a vet to our foster department. So here's my exam portion down here. I think you guys can probably see my mouse. So this is my exam. BAR means bright, alert, responsive. That just means that they're normally conscious, acting normal. Euhydrated, normal hydration. Normal CRT is capillary refill time. If you press your finger on your skin and you see that it takes a refill time, that's what that is. So Frank would not allow an oral exam, but he has no teeth present. Suspect, that's why his tongue sticks out. His heart, lungs, lymph nodes, abdomen, and eyes, ears, nose, throat are within normal limits. That means all of those other things were normal. He has a generalized unkempt appearance and a scruffy hair coat. So I wanted to send him to foster because he's too crusty. Should take 1 to 2 weeks. Special instructions are to bathe twice weekly until his face and feet are no longer crusty. So Frank makes his way back from foster. Oh, first I got to give a nod to our maintenance department. These guys make sure that everything is running smoothly. They build things, they build fences, they keep all of our kennels in repair. These guys keep the place running. So that's Gani and Jojo. I'll talk a little bit about administration. So administration, so everything I've talked up to this point, most of this stuff, animal care, volunteer services kind of falls into both, maintenance kind of falls into both. All of this stuff is related to operations. So that's all operation stuff. Administration is all the sort of front of the house stuff, the stuff that happens in the administration building. So for administration, we have our executive office. So that's our CEO, Anna. I sort of think of her as, think of a bunch of bananas. So, you know, a bunch of bananas and you have a stalk at the top that holds them all together. That's sort of how I think of our executive office. It's like the stalk that everything sort of else comes off of and holds everything together. Development department are the people that bring in the money. Finance department accounts for the money. Our human resources department manages all of the people that care for these animals. Our advocacy department, Steph Kendrick, works to improve animal welfare laws in Hawaii and do all sorts of other stuff, work with lawmakers and things. Our community relations department works on a lot of things. They work on communications, how everything is presented, outreach, our pet food bank, our social media. So Frank made it back from foster. He was having a hard time getting adopted. So our CR department made a social media post for him. So this went up on Instagram. So it says, meet Frank. Frank was owner surrendered for being too scruffy and cute. His previous owner also complained that his tongue sticks out too much. For more information or to adopt him, go to hawaiianhumane.org. So we're back to our blueprint here, and we're almost complete. We're at the last step of adoption. So adoption can happen in a bunch of different ways. It can happen on-site or at one of our off-site partners. We partner with Pounce Pet Hotel, Cat Cafe, and Petco. So all of these places adopt cats out for us, and that's all run by our adoptions department. So right now, just like with admissions, our adoptions department is by appointment only, and that's due to COVID protocol. So I didn't create or talk about Frank's adopter very much, but that might be for a specific reason. But let's say that Frank's adopter found him on the website. They said, oh, I want to meet that dog. They made an appointment to come in. Our adoptions department scheduled them to come in. They're doing curbside service, just like in our admissions area, making sure that everybody's wearing masks, staying 6 feet away. And they're busy. So our adoptions associates and manager and supervisors are very, very busy. So it's a full-time job for sure. But there's Frank getting adopted. Whenever an animal like Frank leaves, I say, "Oh my gosh, I love you so much, but I never want to see you again. Please don't come back. I want you to go and stay. Don't come back. Stay in your home." So that completes the process for the most part. I've been lying this whole time. Frank was never a shelter dog, at least not for the last 5 years. I adopted him in Denver. He's my dog, but he's a good mascot. So here he is at my house with Kevin. So that went a little bit quicker than I thought it was going to. So hopefully we have some questions.
No, it was great. Thank you so much, Dr. Carter. I got your secret out before you told everyone. Earlier on, I told everyone in the chat it was actually your dog and that he was a great model for the presentation. So anyways, I wanted to touch base with everyone and see if you had any questions. Right now, I know that I saw we did have one question in the group chat. So I'm going to go ahead and start with that one. Dr. Carter, if you want to take this question here, and we can kind of keep rolling through. So if you guys have any questions at all, go ahead and type them in the chat box. If you are calling in or you're having trouble typing in the chat box, you can raise your hand. So if you're on the phone, you can click *9 to raise your hand, and then I can unmute you to ask the question. Otherwise, feel free just to type in the chat box. So the first question that we got, Dr. Carter, was, so what kind of trends or numbers have you seen since the pandemic started?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have seen a decrease in admissions, and I think it has to do with a lot of things. It has to do with us taking in fewer animals. I think with the pandemic, taking in fewer animals. Everything's by appointment only, so it's not just a free-for-all. Also, we're sort of asking our community to be a lot more responsible with cats. So I think we have seen a decrease in the number of cats that we've brought in. Daniel and his communications team have come up with, and I think it was in the last Paw Prints magazine, if you guys saw that, about our sort of new community approach to cats and how we're bringing in fewer feral cats, which is leading to lower euthanasia numbers as well, which is a good thing. We're promoting TNRM, trap, neuter, release, and manage, a lot more than we have before. So I think that kind of has contributed to the decrease in numbers. That said, we're not slow. We're really busy all the time still. So I'm curious to see what our end of year stats are gonna look like, but sort of superficially, it feels like we're a little bit lower, but if you walk around right now, we're still just overflowing all the time, especially in the summer.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's a great overview. We have another kind of fun question for you, a very important question. Frank doesn't stick his tongue out anymore, does he?
All the time. That's all he does.
Guys, he still does.
He has no teeth, so there's nothing to hold it in there.
Yeah, it's okay. It's great.
It's out the left side.
Awesome. We'll go on to our next question. This question, you may not know, Dr. Carter, and I'll have to touch base with Michelle to confirm, but the question was, how do you calculate foster parent hours? Just wondering for the total volunteer hours each year. I'll have to double check with Michelle. So just to kind of give you guys an overview, if you're not familiar. So there's two different sections of volunteers. There's kind of on-site and some off-site volunteer operations. So on-site, that's everyone that Dr. Carter kind of talked about. Off-site, that's EPS, which is our emergency pet shelter volunteers, foster volunteers, off-site Petco cat adoption volunteers. So we have all these different individuals volunteering on-site as well as off-site. And foster is such a big part of that that it's actually a separate department within the volunteer services programs. So we actually have a separate, foster care manager for that. So she manages the day-to-day with those types of things when it comes to calculating hours, putting all those things together for our annual report. And then I work more with individuals on site, as well as those who are, off-site for EPS, for off-site pet code options, things like that. However, you guys are all volunteers, so we obviously, interact with each other and do engagement events and have that as well. So we're still all connected. There's just a separate department to help manage that, just because it's such a huge portion of our services. And so I'll have to double check with Michelle. And actually, I texted her while we were on, and she's getting back to me right now. Look at that. Look how quick we are. She said 3 hours per day, and if they have an animal in their care. So 3 hours per day is what we calculate that for, which makes sense because that's about essentially how much time you'd imagine you spend not only walking, feeding, taking care of an animal. So there's your answer right there. That's how quick we are at Hawaiian Humane. We're just right on it. Let's see here. We also had the question about friends wanting to adopt a dog. They mentioned that dogs are being adopted a lot more during the pandemic. Is that true? Dr. Carter, would you be able to speak to this, or is this something more of a adoption?
Yeah, for sure. I think I can a little bit. During the beginning of the pandemic, we had done an emergency foster situation, sort of similar. If you guys have been around for a few years, you probably remember the Friends for Life case, the YNI rescue that we did. So there were over 300 dogs that we took in to our shelter overnight that we had to care for and we fostered them out. So we did an emergency foster situation where we called on volunteers and the public to please come foster these animals, so that there weren't so many in our care, so that we can sort of care for them in their foster homes rather than caring for them in a kennel here. Until we were able to get them processed and spayed and neutered and fixed their teeth and all that stuff so that they can go and get adopted. We did a similar thing here when the pandemic started, and put a call out to everybody and asked if people could do emergency fostering for us, and had a huge response. Ton of those animals were adopted by those homes as well, so it was a win-win. So I think, when I walk around right now, I don't think that our number of dogs have really decreased. I think I would have to look at the numbers to be sure, but I think there hasn't been a considerable drop in the number of dogs that have come in. I think there has been some, but still walking around looking at the dogs available, there's not very many. So I think our dogs are getting adopted,
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. We're just going to keep coming at you with questions, Dr. Carter. I have a whole list here. What is your favorite thing about practicing veterinary medicine in a shelter setting?
So shelter medicine is a little bit different than private practice medicine. It's sort of, if you go to veterinary school, you usually have to get a bachelor's degree first. I got a bachelor's degree, it took me 5 years. Then I didn't get into vet school because it's difficult to get into vet school. So then I had to get a master's degree. So I got a master's degree in a year, got a new GPA, then got into vet school, and spent another 4 years at vet school. So then after 4 years of vet school, you can be a practicing veterinarian and go and work as a vet. Whether you want to be an equine vet with horses or a mixed animal vet with goats and cows, or if you want to be a small animal vet with dogs and cats mostly. Or you can go work at the zoo or other things like that. Usually those like a zoo degree or internal medicine or specialized surgery, cardiologist, neurologist for veterinarians. You have to go and do like another 5 years of school usually, or a residency. I didn't do any of that. I left vet school and I went straight into the shelter. Shelter medicine is a little bit different than private practice though. It's a little bit of a different philosophy. Practice population medicine, treat the individual for the sake of the population, I say. Um, what I love about shelter medicine particularly is just the volume of animals that we can help day to day is huge. Being able to have my hand on 40 surgeries and 20 vet checks a day with 60 animals, to be able to help 60 animals a day versus if I go work in private practice, I'm looking at maybe 5 to 10, maybe. And I just feel, you know, to each his own. I'm not saying anything bad about private practice veterinarians. We need them. It's just what I chose. I just love the number of animals that I'm able to help, you know.
Oh, that's awesome.
Also get to do a lot more stuff. So all that enucleations and entropion repairs and stuff, if that, a lot of times at a private practice vet, they say, whoa, I'm not touching that. I'm sending that to the specialist versus I'm able to. So it's pretty cool. Able to help a lot of animals.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a very great reason, a very great answer as to why you like working in the field. Our next question is, do all of the animals all stay in kennels for the duration of their stay, or they're allowed to commingle, run around with other animals?
So for dogs, they do mostly stay in individual kennels unless they came in as a bonded pair or something like that. The risk of dog fights or spreading disease and stuff like that are the reasons. Our cats are kept in kennels in the back of the house for the most part, back in the operations building. When they make it to adoption, if you guys have seen the cat houses, there is colonies for cats. So that's when a bunch of cats can come together and sort of live together and get adopted out that way. That's how Cat Cafe is as well. That's how Pounce is.
Awesome. Yeah, great. Yeah, so essentially, yes, unless they are cats that are in those cat house areas to intermingle. But ultimately, it really just depends where they are on campus, it sounds like. And then dogs generally, yeah, they would be sitting by themselves unless they're going out for a walk with our volunteers, which I know the volunteers are not dogs, so they're people, but they get that interaction with the volunteers. Our next question.
Sorry, Jules. I'm giving you guys a sort of a snapshot of the way things are right now.
Yeah.
We're always changing, always improving, always trying to improve at least. So I never know what tomorrow's going to look like. You know, there could be dog play groups. There couldn't be, I don't know. I think it all just sort of depends on the trends and where we're at capacity wise with our staff and all that stuff too.
Yeah. The next question we have, if you want, I can kind of take this one a little bit. I don't have all the details for it, but we can get you some more information on it. Christine said in the chat, how long will a cat stay at the cat habitat for adoption at Petco? If they do not get adopted at Petco, will they be taken back to the cat house at the Hawaiian Humane Society? What is the process? So generally I can tell you that when our cats go off-site to the Petco locations, you know, the goal is to get them adopted out. And so we have these wonderful volunteers that go and spend time with them, get to know them a little bit better. And then when individuals are interested, they can ask about them, ask the Petco staff. If those animals do spend a lot of time at the Petco and maybe aren't getting adopted out, we have a lot of different things we can do. Just like you saw Frank's social media ad, we can do things like that, do some little social media boost, you know, to kind of advertise for this animal, try to find their forever home, and find that, you know, not only through just like word of mouth, but social media, and then kind of sharing that and spreading the word. I'm not really sure about the specific process, so I don't know if there is a specific time frame in terms of how long, you know, we have them stay at the Petco, and then if we do bring them back. But I'd be happy to get some more information on that and get that to you, Christine. Next one, we have, on 2 occasions, this is from Alice. On 2 occasions, I had the sad experience of seeing a cat in the road who had been hit by a car. Of course, I did what little I could, which was to bring them to the Hawaiian Humane Society. The first one was many years ago and was still alive. The more recent one was ostensibly already dead, but I brought it in anyway. My question is, would these cats have been scanned to detect the presence of a microchip? If yes, would the animal's registered caretaker be notified?
Yes. So our admission staff should be scanning every animal that comes in, regardless of whether they're alive. Yeah, so definitely, I think, yep, the answer should be yes.
Yeah, letting them know that we found their animal and what's going on and keeping them informed. One other question we had was, do all dogs and cats get tick and flea medication when they come through admissions or come to admissions?
They do. So dogs and cats all get flea and tick medication as long as we can handle them and at the time of health check. So usually that's less than 24 hours after they come in. Working on, one of the things on my long list is working on vaccination on intake. So that would be probably part of that, where animals are vaccinated immediately when they come in rather than having to wait 12 to 24 hours to get vaccinated. So there's a lot of moving parts there, a lot of training to do, but working on it. But I guess the answer is yes. So we are partners with BI, Boehringer Ingelheim. They make vaccines and they're the people that make HeartGuard and NexGard. So they give us really good deals on vaccines and HeartGuard and NexGard and Frontline. So all of our animals are treated appropriately. So they take really good care of us, along with Hills for the food for the same reason, you know.
Yeah, that's great. This kind of goes along with the previous question. Do puppies that are around 6 weeks of age get wormed before they go out to foster, the deworming?
Yep, 6 weeks. So starting at 4 weeks old.
Awesome. Does the Hawaiian Humane Society also accept and treat birds? Good question.
We do. So we accept birds. We have a rooster, a fancy looking rooster out for adoption right now.
We do. Pass them every day. Lately.
Also all kinds of other birds, lovebirds, parakeets, cockatoos, all those.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we get birds, and we'll put them up for adoption pretty often.
Awesome. This one's kind of a combination question. What are your goals in the clinic and then in the shelter? And then with an unlimited budget, what would you change or improve? So I guess you can start with the goals in the clinic and the shelter as a whole from your perspective.
An unlimited budget, huh? So our goals for the spay-neuter clinic are to serve the public for spay-neuter, but also to serve our colony cat caretakers and be a part of the solution for our cat problem on this island. We can't do it alone, so we don't try to take credit for it alone. That's impossible to do it alone. So that's why we're collaborating with other groups. I know I talked a little bit about our executive office, and Anna, she's working with other groups and has formed a collaboration group to talk about these things, because it's not the cat problem isn't a Hawaiian Humane Society problem, it's a community problem. So I think us realizing that and being part of that solution is a huge part of our spay-neuter clinic. Our shelter clinic, the goal is to get as many animals spayed and neutered, do dentals, anything that they need medically or surgically, just to make them available for adoption, so that they can make their way through the system and get up and get into homes. With unlimited money, so we are very well resourced as a shelter. We're very lucky. I've seen a lot of shelters. Every time I go to a new city on a vacation or anything like that, I always try to stop and look at the shelters there. We're lucky. We have really good donors, you know, and sometimes I feel like we have unlimited funds. I know we don't, because I have to work the budget. But with unlimited fun, I don't know. That's a tough question. I'd probably get a bunch of fun equipment or something.
Maybe a memorial for Frank, like a forever shrine.
Yeah, like bronze statue or something.
Not that. Yeah, no, I mean, we're always looking to improve and strive for more, right? I mean, the work here is never done. Same thing goes with the volunteer program, with every program on the Hawaiian Humane Society team. So that's why we really appreciate, suggestions, ideas, really creative minds coming into these different roles to figure out how we can make the things happen that we want to happen with the resources we have currently, and then how we can get the resources that we need to make those other, dreams and visions happen as well. So
yeah, and I say we're well resourced just
yeah.
From a perspective point of view. Yep. I'm not saying we have too much money or anything like that, because because we don't. We especially with COVID, it's really like hit everybody economically hard, So and then we came in on a huge transition period. Our euthanasia rates, so I've been here over 2 years, our euthanasia rate went down 24% the first year I was here, 31% this last year. Our euthanasia rate dipped. If you combine those, it's got to be like in the 40% region, like that our euthanasia rate has decreased. One of our board members went to Maui Humane Society and was talking to them, and they said, yeah, it takes a lot more money to not euthanize animals than it does to euthanize animals. So the further we go along this track and we're euthanizing fewer and fewer animals, it's going to cost more money. And I think that's just the nature of it,
Yeah, for sure. I have another question for you. They just keep on coming in. Has the Humane Society ever accepted and treated animals in need of immediate surgery? Or would they have to be sent to a hospital first, then moved to the Hawaiian Humane Society after being treated?
So it depends on how the animal came in. If an owner brings them in and the owner surrender them, they become ours immediately. So without risk of being prosecuted by the law or losing my veterinary license or anything like that, they're our animal, so I can do surgery immediately. If they come into us and they have a microchip, or if they don't have a microchip, whether they do or not, it's a risk for me to take them to surgery, because if they were to die under anesthesia, then I would have to go to those people, the owners, later and say, yes, I felt it was an absolute emergency for me to do surgery on your animal. So I have to balance that with treating with pain medications and antibiotics, or taking them to emergency surgery. Every once in a while, we take them to emergency surgery. And we usually do that here. There have been a few cases that came in, like this dog came in at one point, was hit by a car. I could tell based on my exam that he had air in his chest in the wrong spot, so he probably had a punctured lung. It's not, we don't have the capability to treat that here. So he was still on hold. He had a microchip. We couldn't get a hold of the owner, but he was going to die if I didn't get him to an emergency hospital. So we sent him to VERC. They treated him, got him stable. And then we finally got a hold of the people. They actually paid for the bill, even though it was my decision to send him. So I would have been willing to pay for the bill. So it sort of just depends on the circumstance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
But if it's in the best interest of the animal, or if the animal's going to die, I'm going to take it to emergency surgery.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, since we're kind of on the topic of this arena, I did want to go ahead and jump down to a great question we had. What criteria does the Humane Society use to make the choice to euthanize? So you can talk a little bit about that and what might lead to that being a best outcome, humane euthanasia.
Yep. So we do euthanize animals. It's a fact of open admission shelters. I'm not ashamed of it. We shouldn't be ashamed of it. I think all the upheaval that happened a couple years ago in the news and all that stuff sort of was related to us being ashamed of it and not being transparent and saying what we do. We euthanize animals for severe medical problems and severe behavioral problems. So I say that we euthanize animals for severe medical problems for the sake of them or for the sake of the population here. We euthanize animals for behavioral problems for the sake of the community, like dangerous dogs. If dogs are unsafe to be out in the public or have severely injured somebody or something like that, we can't rightfully adopt those dogs out. Severe medical stuff, we're euthanizing. This is why our a large part of the reason why our euthanasia rate has gone down is that we're just treating more and more. If it's something that I feel I can't rightfully adopt out, a medical condition that is so severe that it's not fair to put it on the animal or the adopter, that's generally when euthanasia is elected. There's a lot more complicating factors, you know. We have to talk about our population and all of that stuff. We're lucky that we don't have to euthanize for time or space. So there was a time when we did at Hawaiian Humane Society before I was here years and years ago. There are a lot of shelters in the country that still have to euthanize for time or space. So euthanizing for time means taking a look at all the animals and saying, oh, you've been here longer than anybody else, we need your kennel, you get euthanized. Euthanizing for space is sort of similar. It's like, oh, every kennel's full and one just came in, we got to euthanize one. We're lucky that we don't have to do that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that definitely helps put things in perspective. And, you know, it is a part of working at an open admission shelter. So if you have any further questions about kind of that, open admissions, limited admissions, I also highly recommend you guys also watch our new general volunteer orientation video. I'd be happy to send that out at a later time. Basically, that video goes over just the, you know, shelter in general as a whole. And also there's a section that talks about that a little more. So it's a nice little overview of what that looks like and kind of covers some of the big FAQs for further questions. I see on here a quick question that I can answer. So I don't see Petco Pearl City on the Hawaiian Humane Society, my scheduled tab anymore. Did we lose our partnership to volunteer at that particular site? So from my understanding, so we currently volunteer with 6 Petco locations. That location actually has OSPCA in their location, so they don't have room for another organization to have extra cats in there. So they have that space, so that's why we're not at Pearl City.
I have a question here.
Yeah, go for it.
You can me privately. From Alex, are you still spaying and neutering feral cats? And can I talk about that program? So yes, we are spaying and neutering feral cats. They're all coming through our community spay neuter center where I'm standing right now. So we are open 4 days a week in the community spay neuter center, Wednesday through Saturday. And we say that we allow up to 10 walk-ins. We regularly take in like 30 every day because we're not going to turn anybody away, you know, but we just kind of try to limit it and at least get that in people's mind that, so yeah, that's sort of our program as is now. We also work with some of the other organizations on the island, like Cat Friends and Aloha Kitty TNR and Cat Charities, and we'll work with them to bring in large numbers of cats at one time. So coming up here in a couple weeks, I think Aloha Kitty is going to be bringing in 30 cats for us to spay and neuter. But yeah, regularly in the spay neuter clinic here, we're doing somewhere between 30 and 60 animals every day.
Man, it's a lot of animals to spay and neuter, huh? A lot of them. This kind of goes along with that question as well. We had someone else ask, is there any funding to pay for the spay neutering of feral cats? I trapped and brought one in, but had to pay for it myself. Do you know anything about that, Dr. Carter?
Spaying and neutering feral cats. So we have, city and county run in coordination with the Hawaiian Humane Society. We have the Feline Fix program. So Feline Fix used to cost $10 before this year. I was talking about Steph Kendrick, our advocacy, public policy advocate. And I think Lori, our finance person, was involved or something too. I don't know. But anyway, so it used to be $10 and you would go to a satellite city hall and buy a Feline Fix certificate. As of the start of the fiscal year, so in July, there's no longer a fee. So trap cats should be free to any clinic that works the Feline Fix program. And there's online processes to get it registered and stuff like that. But we shouldn't be, as of July, we shouldn't be charging for free roaming cat surgeries.
Yeah, in order to get that certificate, if you guys are wondering, if you go to hawaiianhumane.org, and then on the left side of the page, it says spay/neuter. If you click that, I believe that's the tab in which it says Feline Fix. You can click that and find out about how to request one of those certificates. So feel free to check that out. And if you have any trouble finding it, contact us and let us know. Let's see, I have a few more here. We'll just go through a couple more and then we'll wrap up. I have, speaking of donating to Hawaiian Humane Society, do you have a specific donate, or do you have to specify donating specifically to Max or Smudges Fund to have the money dedicated to those? Or do you make the decision internally? I believe, Dr. Carter, correct me if I'm wrong, or if anyone else on staff is on this call, I believe that when you go online to donate, there is a separate category for Smudges Fund. Oh, it looks like Olivia has answered right here. To answer Deb's question about donating to Max's Fund and Smudges Fund, if you'd like to donate to one of those funds specifically, please let us know with a note on your donation. It can be as simple as writing either Smudges Fund or Max's Fund in your checks memo line. Smudges Fund is for cats and Max's Fund is for dogs. That's a great question. Thank you, Olivia, for hopping in there. It's really nice that we have a lot of staff on this call, especially if some of us maybe don't know all the ins and outs to some of these questions. So really appreciate it. And if there's any questions on here that we didn't answer fully, we'll reach out to the different departments and make sure that we get a full answer back to you in case there's anything we missed. Kind of scroll down here and see if we have anything else. Is there an effort to update microchip owner contact information? This could be very important in the event of an accident, such as the doctor just described, aka you. So do you know anything about that, Dr. Carter, in terms of updating microchip owner contact information? I know that, you know, it is the owner's responsibility to now log those in the databases so that if the animal comes through, we're able to find them. But I don't believe do we have any active thing that we're doing? Looks like Susie just chimed in here. She said, hi, Alice. We're doing a campaign to empower owners to register and update their chip information with the chip maker. So ultimately it is the owner's responsibility. So the best that we can do, and the best that you can do too, is to spread the word for everyone to, you know, make sure that they update that information, especially if they move or anything, because it's so easy to forget to do. Yay. I just saw some clapping from Alice. She's like, yes, support that. Let's see. I have here, a few years ago, I brought in a mama and feral kittens. I was told they were going to be euthanized because Hawaiian Humane Society euthanizes rat kittens is what she wrote. Still true or not? Oh, feral kittens. Feral kittens. Do you know the answer to that, Dr. Carter, and what the answer would be for her question?
Yes. So a few years ago was different than today. Much different. A few years ago, this I could see would be absolutely true. A few years ago, any kitten under 1.5 pounds was euthanized, regardless of health status. So that's not true anymore. Today, we are asking people if they have a feral cat to not bring it to us. We're asking them to trap, neuter, release it, trap, neuter, release, manage it, so that it can go back to where it came from, so that, like, realistically, if somebody brings us in a feral cat and we put it in a kennel and we wait 48 hours for the possible owner to come through, because any stray animal, we're obligated by law to hold for 48 hours without a microchip. If we have a feral cat come in, we hold it for 48 hours, it's terrified for 48 hours. There's no adopter that's going to want to adopt a feral cat, right? Like, I think there are some people, and we work with some people, some colony care managers, that will take those animals on and reintroduce them into different colonies and things like that. And these are the things that we're working towards, so that we don't have to euthanize the feral cats that come into our care in that way. But that said, based on that infographic that Daniel put in the last paw prints thing, or that Daniel and his team put in, we're moving away from that. We don't want to do that at all. Like, if a feral cat and mother came into us today, as far as the kittens go, it depends on how old the kittens are, but generally if kittens are 4 weeks old, 4 to 6 weeks old, they can be socialized and become not feral, even if mom was feral. So if this was today, and this was the situation, we would encourage TNR in. We would encourage the person who brought them in to get the mom spayed and neutered, and we'll do it for free, and put the mom back where she came from. And then we could take the kittens in and put them into a foster home and socialize them and get them adopted out.
Yeah, we actually even have Steph Kendrick on here, public policy advocate gal on our team. She posted in here, foster mom here. I have 4 5-week-old feral kittens at home right now. And she said that they are making strides. So it's super exciting to hear. I think I remember seeing Steph on a Zoom meeting. I don't know when it was recently, and I saw in the background all of her little kittens in her little container playing around. So yeah, if you guys are interested in learning more about fostering, kind of getting involved and helping us in that process, feel free to reach out as well. We have a foster tab on our website where you can kind of learn some more. And also, Jess just sent to the chat, here's the link to the latest Paw Prints issue with the robust story about our socially conscious position on FRCs. So you can go ahead and click that link as well. We're gonna go ahead, I think, and wrap up. I just wanna let you guys all know, if you send me any messages privately or any specific questions pertaining to you, I'm gonna go back through the chat and reach out. And if there's anything we didn't cover, we'll make sure we get that to you. Also, reminder before you leave, I'll be sending out a little post-presentation review survey. So if you can fill that out, that would be super helpful. I'm also going to send out the general volunteer orientation video, so you can watch that as well. If you're a volunteer who has been with us for a long time, this is a newer video, so take a peek. If you're one of our newer volunteers, you would have seen this recently, so that's exciting. Thank you so much, everyone. It was so great to see you all. We had staff, EPS volunteers, foster, pet visitation, on-site volunteers. We had everybody here today. It was so nice. I hope you guys have a great day. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys.
Bye.